Each irrigation zone must be evaluated to note if it is mostly sunny or shady, if there is mostly grass or shrubs or flower beds, is the soil sandy and well draining or is it heavier and holding water, and whether there is a slope. The old timer-based controller is disconnected and removed because it is not equipped to read the data that comes from the new mini weather sensor that must be installed on the property. The new ET controller is installed and wired to each irrigation zone. Then the specs for each zone are programmed into the computer. For example, Zone 1 is St. Augustine grass in 60% shade with sandy loam soil and a 2% slope. The weather sensor replaces the old rain sensor and is wired into the ET controller. The tech programs the zip code for the site into the ET controller so that the weather sensor will pull weather data from the closest weather station to the site.
This is what we've currently started to install at homes in Hunters Creek and our other locations. This is the Rainbird ESP SMT. Each zone is set up for the landscape. So zone 1 that may be in the front yard is set for grass, whereas other zones that may have bedded areas are set for ornamentals or some type of plant. It's set up with sun shade settings and the type of sprinklers, which give an application rate and an efficiency factor. And then it waters each zone based on need and those settings.
When you set up the controller initially, you have a choice to go in and put some of your own data, or you can go ahead and put in your zip code. And what Rainbird did is we purchased 10 years of data for every zip code in the United States that takes care of temperature, wind speed, humidity, and solar radiation. And it takes then for each day, so for April 27th, it'll go back, and from 1997 to 2007, it takes an average of that day, and you know what, in most cases it's pretty accurate to say, you know what, solar radiation today is this, and humidity is going to be this, whatever. And the things that this sensor does, number one, it's got temperature on it, which is, you know, there's going to be a variation, temperature would be one of them. And the other thing is the tipping rain bucket that you were alluding to. And that's, you know, we can get pretty darn close by plugging in those numbers to what ET would be based on historical data. So those three factors are in there, plus we're getting temperature on site, and then we're actually keeping track of actual rainfall. And depending on the types of soils, which we actually put into the controller, it'll say, you know what, effective rainfall, if this thing starts tipping and we get an inch of rain in an hour, and we've got heavier soils here, we'll say that, you know what, 2/3 of that just ran off and didn't even perk into the ground. It was not effective rainfall. And you can actually set the controller up, and all of us have seen it, where you'll drive down the street and you'll be pouring rain and the sprinklers are still going. This will actually say that you can set it for how many ever tips you want. So one tip would be 2/100 of an inch. Two tips would be 400, 600, 800, 1,000, a quarter of an inch, or a tenth of an inch, all the way up to 2/10. You can program it in there when you want it to shut off. You can set this thing so at 2/100 of an inch, the first time it starts raining, it shuts down, waits, sees if it's going to be, if that was just one cloud going by, or if there's going to be more rainfall, and then it'll pick up wherever it left off. And it'll actually calculate in the effective rainfall that it happened, and if it needed a quarter or it needed a 1/2 inch, and it irrigated zone 1 for a 1/10 of an inch, and then we got 2/10 of effective rainfall, it'll subtract that out, pick up where it left off, and only give you the last 2/10. So you just save 2/10 of an irrigation inch for that particular zone, and then it'll go on and do whatever else it needs to do based on what's in there.